Welcome to this week's edition of the Belau Report to the People. And we welcome back Randy Staver, who took some days off to run for office, and you're reelected. We welcome you back.
Glad to be here.
Jim Bier from Olmsted County Board of Commissioners, who welcome you back too. You're not going to be chairman for another 2 years, but it's nice to have you back.
Thanks.
Because you're so good at answering questions. And Rob Miller. All right, and we stop after questions, and we start with Rob Miller. Grandpa, isn't it?
Grandpa, yes. Yes, I have a 6-week-old grandson, and pretty excited about that. Grandson and daughter are going to come to Rochester for about 6 months while my son-in-law deploys for the United States Air Force, so we're looking forward to that.
And you love our weather, right? Or do you ever get used to Minnesota weather after you've lived in Arizona?
Absolutely, Jane, absolutely. You know, when you move to Minnesota, you assume it's going to get chilly from time to time. So it is a little different, but we're embracing it.
Okay, so let's start with you. You're the only one that does not have a budget to defend. And you've got some big things coming up in January. And you have an event coming up in what, next week on the legislative session?
We do. We have our election preview, and that'll be next week on the 19th. It's really a slow month, believe it or not, at the Chamber. December's a fairly slow month for us. We, believe it or not, are in budget talks. We just don't make them public like these two gentlemen, so that's fortunate for me. But my budget is small in comparison to theirs. So we've been working on that. We'll get that passed this month from our board, as well as our legislative priorities we're working on, and we'll bring those to our board next week.
I will ask you, because every program in the last 6 weeks people have talked about it, will there be a special session called by the governor before year end to deal with problems such as healthcare costs?
You know, it'd be wonderful if that was the case, Jane, but I'm not optimistic. I'll just tell you that. I'm
Okay.
not optimistic.
All right, so the big news for the public sector are the budgets, and they've been working with public hearings and internal adjustments. And Randy Staver, we start with you. You got the biggest increase potentially.
Potentially. Well, we came in with our initial levy amount set at just about 11%, and by law, we can't go any higher than that. We can certainly go lower. We concluded 3 days of budget hearings and discussion on a number of priorities within the city, and right now it looks like we're going to come in at around 9.1%. We will have some public hearing on that on December 19th, and we will take a vote.
All right, what's your best guess?
As far as the amount,
Yep.
I think it'll probably come in at 9.1. Part of the dilemma is that a total of 30 new positions were requested, and many of those have merit, whether it be public works and public safety. I think what we're going to end up approving is more like 5 positions, and most of those are devoted for public safety. 2 police officers, 2 firefighters. So I think we're continuing to maintain our emphasis on our fundamental responsibility to the citizens, public safety, good roads, things of that nature. I think that is one of the fundamental responsibilities we have, and I think that's where our focus will be. I will say also that while the property tax levy will likely increase, one thing to point out is the overall budget will likely go down by about $22 million. So there are some other cost savings in the budget.
Are you worried at all about the Civic Center expansion without giving them the people that they said they needed to run it?
Those were some of the positions we did put in the budget, largely because they're funded by the hotel lodging tax. So they had requested 3 positions, which makes sense. They have more square footage to take care of, maintain, So it made sense to see an increase in their staffing.
How about the senior center? Do you have staffing responsibilities there?
We do not. That's an independent organization. We, of course, have some say over the structure, the facility, and some of the operational expense, but not the staffing.
And how will that work with the city facilities that they're attached to in terms of usage?
Well, you're talking about the recreation
Yeah.
center. And there are opportunities for them to cross and share facilities. So you could have the warm water pool, for example. You could use that for a senior class, or you could use it for citizens. So there is an opportunity to share those amenities, which is good because we really want to get the highest and best use out of those features. But from a cost standpoint, they are separated. So, for example, the warm water pool is paid for by the recreation center or the city, and then the senior center only has use of it.
Okay, what's your biggest cut, or the one that will hurt the most when you went from the 9.5 to the 9.1? Not the original estimate, but the one you had sort of
Yeah,
worked on.
the 11% figure is what we talked about originally. And I think the thing that suffers most is some of the maintenance, particularly roads and bridges. We know we have a deficit in that regard and that we need to keep up so that we maintain the quality of roads that we've all come to expect. So we're not, in my opinion, funding properly some of those maintenance efforts. And that's, I think, off the top of my head, that's the thing that takes the biggest hit.
Okay, we'll talk about the new council when we come back. And Jim Bier, now you have a very small increase, right?
Well, I don't know, some people would, ours started at 2.5%, 2.5% in September, and we passed our final budget this morning at our final county board meeting, so ours is 2.5%, we didn't waver from that. Some people would say that's excessive, but we were pretty fortunate, we've got a lot of accomplishments this year. We managed to get the metal screening detection for up in the courtroom. We started drug court. We've got the HRA going. We're building 55th Street. That's quite a structure out there. We've managed to get a lot of things done, and somehow we've managed to be able to stay at 2.5%, which I think is good. We just kind of move along. We had our budget meetings, and the staff wanted some positions, and we couldn't fund everything, obviously, because we were tied at the 2.5%, but no, it's been good. It's been a good year. Like I say, we're fortunate to get some federal and state grants. As far as the state, it sure would be nice if the state had their special session, but I'm with Rob. I don't see that happening, which is kind of unfortunate. There was a lot of good things in there for a lot of people all over the state, but there were a lot for the city of Rochester and Olmsted County, and it's a shame that they couldn't get their work done. So I'm hoping that next year it'll be a turn a new leaf, and they'll be able to get some work done and get it done on time that everybody can agree on. So we'll see how that goes. But no, at the county, things are good.
So what was the thing you left unfunded that you really wish the county had funded?
I'm a transportation guy. I think we're making a little bit more headway with the roads and bridges here. But we continue to fall behind on bridges, replacing our bridges. There are none that are imminent failure, but our index of how well they are functioning continues to erode. And a lot of that is from the bridge bonding money from the state. It's a program that Democrats and Republicans both love, and there was some passed in that bonding bill, and it just went up in smoke. Transportation is key. It's key for a lot of things. It's key for the chamber to be able to move their products in and out of town, for the farmers to be able to move their grain and produce in and out of town, for the employees, for our largest employer to be able to come in and go, and for the patients, to come and go. So transportation, and I'm including everything in transportation. I'm not just talking cars. I'm talking the whole gambit. Public transportation, bicycles, pedestrians, as well as cars. I mean, let's face it, most people still drive cars. We're Americans. We're in love with our cars. but we need funding for transportation to do all these great things that we want to continue to do. So if I had my wish, it'd be for some more transportation dollars.
I heard DMC has kind of tapped on the county and said, we want your money. What
Well, that
part?
was part of the original legislation. We were to provide $3 million a year, and we have done that. We passed a 1/4% sales tax, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever DMC went through, and we've used some of that money to do overlays, but we have committed, we voted this past year to commit we get probably on that 1/4% sales tax, I don't know, round numbers, $6 million a year, but we've committed to fund our $3 million to the DMC into the future, and that money is being set aside. So, yeah, we're fully funded as far as DMC from the county perspective.
And what will your contribution fund?
It'll fund transportation. Again, transportation is key. How are we we can't all drive cars downtown Rochester anymore, no matter, I mean, it's just physically impossible. If we had 20 to 30,000 jobs in the core of Rochester for the Mayo Clinic, whether it's doctors or patients coming or whatever, we can't physically get that many cars down there anymore. I mean, it's just impossible. So we need to come up with alternative strategies. Will there be some parking ramps? There'll be some more parking ramps. I mean, we're not going to turn off the key where people aren't in love with their cars. But we got to have alternative strategies, whether we have parking rides outside, more commuters that want to bike down, although, it's 6 degrees above zero. I didn't, surprisingly, I didn't see too many on their bicycles today. Saw a lot more walkers, pedestrians. I think we're going to have more people walking. We get people living downtown, we got to make it friendly for them to be able to get around. So transportation is key.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to be funding.
Randy Staver, you made some changes in transportation in those all-night sessions of the city council. Uber, tell me about what the status is now.
Generically, we refer to those as transportation network companies, or TNCs. Uber is just one of the providers, but of course, their desire to come to Rochester was what started all of this. So we did, after considerable discussion, we did pass a TNC ordinance, and it has had its first reading. So now we just, it's more or less a formality. We'll do a second reading, and it will take effect as an ordinance in early January.
And what are the key parts of that ordinance?
Well, it's really just modeled. We started with the St. Paul TNC ordinance. Keep in mind there are only 3 or 4 cities in Minnesota that have one: St. Cloud, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and now Rochester. So we started with the St. Paul version, and then Uber themselves suggested some changes. So the ordinance that we arrived at really is very much like what we would see in some other communities, with some tweaks to it that Uber as a company have provided. So that should set the stage for them to begin their work. Now, I will note that Uber themselves said that even though we pass an ordinance, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that they will come to Rochester, because like any business, they will do their due diligence now to determine, do they have enough drivers, is there enough of a market, and so forth before they go forward.
Outline for our viewers exactly what Uber does.
Uber is largely, it's very electronic based. So I can pull up an app on my phone, my smartphone, and I can specify where I am and where I want to go. And then and various drivers will respond. They give me an idea of where they're located, how long it will be before they get there. And then there's definitely an idea of what the pricing will be before we ever seal the deal. And then beyond that, it's all electronic in terms of the transaction, so there's no cash or something like that. You prepay or you pay via a credit or debit card. So it's very efficient. It's a model that's proven to work in a lot of communities, and we'll see what happens here. Of course, we're very diligent in wanting to. I would love it if both our taxi cab companies and Uber would survive as a business model. they're different clientele in some cases. And certainly we want to address people that need a ride late at night or in a more timely basis. So I really sincerely hope both models work, and we will see.
Do the Uber drivers constitute a wide variety of people, but a known quantity of people? There are 30 people, for example, that are Uber drivers at one time.
Right. You'll know how many there are, or at least Uber as a company will know. You're exactly right. It's a wide variety. Oftentimes you'll see Uber in a college town where students can pick up a few extra bucks, but it could be for anyone, a retired individual, and they can stipulate how many hours a week they choose to work. So it's it's totally at their pleasure. And then there's a percentage that they give back to Uber to have access to that application, and it's a very simple business model.
You said the demand was strong from the council or from the city or a group of people like moving here potentially?
Well, we certainly hear that from visitors to our city that have encountered Uber in other cities, and especially when they're looking for a ride from the airport, for example. And they're very accustomed to pulling out their phone and looking for Uber, and they were rather surprised that we didn't have it in Rochester. And then certainly there are others that have been very vocal in our community in terms of Rochester should offer that sort of choice for people that are looking for transportation. So there we are.
Okay, now you're changing some rules in the council so that you don't spend all night there?
We are, and one thing I will say is I know we chuckle quite a bit about that session that went until 4 a.m. and I do sincerely apologize to the public for that. None of us likes to sit through that. But to add some context, that was really an anomaly. We had a number of hearings, I think 13 or 14 hearings that evening, and it was just a difficult time to get through. But we had a lot of important things on our plate. So you're right, we're talking, we're going to implement some new rules here with the first of the year, largely to just help better manage the speaking time. And we did install a timer in the council chambers, and essentially the rules are this, that the proponent or applicant for a project, and this is only during the public hearing process, will be allowed 10 minutes to present their project. Subsequent speakers will be allowed 5 minutes each to make whatever points they wish to make. They will not be allowed to speak multiple times during that public hearing. And then the proponent or applicant at the end of the public hearing, at their option, they can choose to take a final 5 minutes, perhaps to answer some questions or clarify some things that were heard during the earlier testimony. Council members, of course, could invite anyone to come back to the podium if we have some questions for them. The timer will be very visible, and it will count down from 5 or 10 minutes, and then we're going to ask people to respectfully step away from the podium.
All right, good luck. All right, let's talk about city-county planning. And every once in a while, when we talk about staffing up the planning department, they raise the question saying, well, is working together the way to do this, or working separately, or what? I'd ask both of you to weigh in on that.
I will start, and this is my personal opinion. I don't know that it's shared completely across the council. We have a consolidated planning department. It's a fairly unique structure in the state of Minnesota anyway. I happen to think it works very well. It allows us to eliminate some duplication of government services, because if we didn't have a consolidated planning, the city would also have to have planners and transportation experts and individuals that make up the professional skill set in the planning department. This is just, oftentimes in a campaign, I'm challenged to, are there other opportunities to combine government? Well, maybe it's the police and the sheriff department or something like that. So here's a situation where we did combine the planning functions within the city county some number of years ago. I happen to think it's worked very well, and so I would really want to think long and hard about splitting that function.
Okay, Jim Bier.
I would agree with Randy. It's Boy, I started cutting my teeth on the Planning Advisory Commission back in the early 80s, and it was consolidated then. I think our planning director was Gunner. And it's worked well. You know, there's always bumps, but overall, it's worked great. The way it currently is structured right now is it's funded, you know, the planning director, the whole function is funded by the county. 75 round numbers percent of the people live in the city of Rochester, so you can say it's funded 75% by the city of Rochester. That being said, with DMC, if we have some more specific things that need to be done in Rochester, maybe we got to add some staff. Now, we're going to have to talk about, you know, who's going to pay for that staff. Whether it should, if it's a straight city function, maybe the city will have to pay for that. I don't know. But as far as tearing the department apart, I don't think that would be productive at this point. I mean, every campaign I've been involved in, our friends at the chamber are always asking us, yeah, can we combine some more stuff? The last few years it was always, can we combine the parks department, the city parks and the county parks? And really we didn't. We've studied that ad nauseum and came up that that just wasn't feasible because the city parks have a different mission from the county parks. I mean, you look at Oxbow and Chester Woods versus the mission of, you know, the city parks where you know more about maybe ball fields or soccer fields and that type of thing. And they each have their own place, and it just didn't seem like it would be a good fit. But we're constantly getting, can we work better together? It would not make sense to me at this point in time to be tearing that department apart.
Okay, all right. Mr. Chamber of Commerce, who doesn't have to worry about a public budget.
Whoa.
That's kind of
What are you hearing from the developers? Now, the city has made some changes in their process for developers, and everyone is trying to get everybody into their buildings and without conflict with neighborhood groups and stuff like that. What are you hearing from the builders?
You know, I'm optimistic. Aaron Reeves was promoted recently, and he will have an eye on development, which I think is important. I think the processes can continue to improve. But I would tell you that I see progress, and certainly I don't hear the disparaging things that I heard when I first came to town, and I know that Randy and the council and the staff have been working on that. But I would also tell you I think there's still work to do, and as we move forward with DMC, and you know there are some very large projects coming down the pike, and so it's going to be really important that the processes are tight and that we work together to make sure that that happens.
Randy, I know the city assigned an individual to the development process recently, and would you like to comment?
Well, I would just tag along with what Rob said. There's still work to be done. I would like to think that we've made some progress. We did identify an individual whose significant responsibilities will be to serve as that liaison to the development process and community. So I think that's certainly a step in the right direction. And then also tagging along with what Jim was saying, I mentioned earlier that I wouldn't want to see the Consolidated Planning Department split apart. But I do believe that it might need some additional resources so that they can truly accommodate the work that we all have in front of us and that we see on the horizon.
Okay, DMC. And Jim Bier, you're on the state committee. You have another meeting this month?
Yes, we have a meeting on Thursday. What's today? Today's
The 15th.
Yeah.
15th at 9:30 at the Riverside Room at the Mayo Civic. So that'll be our wrap-up meeting. For people that don't think a lot of things are happening with DMC. I mean, you've got, not that all these projects will come to fruition, but you've got the Center Place, Gus's project, you've got the Lattice project, you've got the Bloom project, you've got the Days Inn project, you got the Miracle Mile project.
Opus.
So there are a lot of projects in the queue. Will all these projects come to fruition? You know, I think the bulk of them will. There's a lot of things going on here. I'm a little nervous with the new national administration coming in. Interest rates are starting to creep up and construction costs are starting to creep up. So I'd like to be able to get these projects going while we still have a good interest rate structure, because if interest rates start creeping up, and they have been, that could start slowing some of this activity down. But for people that are wondering when are we going to start having some building going on, I think the answer will be this year, not 2016, but 2017. You're going to see a lot of cranes going up. There's a lot of work to be done. Again, transportation, we're a little bit in a slowdown mode there, although we're working. There's a lot of studies that need to be completed so that we can get federal funds, because a lot of these transportation projects, whether you're talking a circulator or even building traffic lanes, or whatever you're talking about, they're big numbers and they require federal money because the numbers are so big. And in order to get that federal money, in order to tap into those resources, you need to do the groundwork and you need to do studies. So that's where we may be a little bit behind where we want to be right now, and that, but that will come. People are moving into town. The one thing I will say, from a county perspective on DMC, we're struggling with this affordable housing and workforce housing. We were talking about this today at our HRA meeting. We want to concentrate, one of the tenets of DMC is we want to concentrate these people downtown. Well, we need to make it affordable for their downtown. I mean, if you've got somebody that's working at, not minimum wage, but a lower wage, and they can live out in West Concord, they can live in a house, maybe they can buy a $100,000 old house out there. I mean, there's no $100,000 houses in Rochester, Minnesota. I mean, even out of Pebble Creek, I don't know, Pebble Creek or Kingsbury's, those are probably $200,000, $210,000. So we're forcing some of these people at the lower end, they're gonna live in houses down in Spring Valley or West Concord or down Cherry Grove or something like that, where housing is a lot more affordable. But what that does is then they're on the road. I mean, the bulk of them are coming into work in Rochester. I'm not trying to make a statement, but it's an issue that we need to recognize and understand. If we want these people to be in town, we need to somehow work with that to make it affordable, or if they're gonna be living out in the Netherlands, they're all gonna be getting to work somehow. So these are problems, and they're all interconnected. There's not an easy solution. So that's gonna be quite a struggle, I think.
Okay, Randy Staver, is the city roadblocking anything right now, or are they just helping the projects move ahead? Let's say a lattice, the one out by St. Mary's, for example.
Well, Jim mentioned a number, a lattice, Miracle Mile, and so forth. So those things are all moving forward. But the other thing I would underscore, we've had a lot of projects already. We just approved the Riverwalk project over off East Center Street. We've got the Mayo Park project that's underway. We've got Joe Weiss's project on North Broadway that's significantly coming along. We've got Flats on 4th, that housing project that's coming along. So we've been approving a fair number of projects as we go along.
Okay, the city administrator, are you searching for one?
We've not started the process yet, but we're talking about what that process is.
Okay.
Keep in mind, we haven't had to do this in over 4 decades, so there's no book to look
It'll
at.
be tough to replace. All right, Rob Miller, Jim Bier, Randy Staver, thank you all three. And our viewers should remember that next Thursday, not the day after tomorrow, but next Thursday, before the Vikings-Packers game, there's going to be 2 kettles downtown. One marked Green Bay, one marked Minnesota, and you can put your money for the Salvation Army, which all stays here and helps people, in one of those kettles, the one you support to win, not the one you think will win or the one you hope will win, but the one you support. That's next Thursday, and in the meantime, have a very good week. And
Thank
thanks
you.
to our viewers, you have a very good week. Christmas is coming, and so is the New Year.